On today's try to finish something, I can't believe that I've been doing these stupid little videos for a year now. I've been making YouTube videos for a year, and in that time, I want to thank you for sticking with me, because in the beginning, they were terrible. I mean, really bad. And it's so weird to look at some of the people that are subscribing to my channel, and I've got like Odin, and I've got Brian and Carissa, and I've got James, and I've got Ron, and I've got a lot of people that I used to watch their videos, and they're the reasons that I'm doing a YouTube channel, and to have them watching my stupid little videos. And then I've got people like David and Dennis and Derek and other people that don't start with D that are watching my videos and commenting, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for putting up with my stupidity and watching these, because I'm really bad at this. I mean, like the last video, I edit in Adobe Premiere, and I wind up bringing in like 3 or 4 hours of footage and edit it down to something that I think you can tolerate. And I wind up doing things where it's like I have a photo in the timeline that's way out here at 4 hours, and I wind up editing everything, and that one little photo that's dangling at the end winds up sticking around, and I export it to YouTube, and like last week, all of a sudden I look and I realize, hey, it's 5 hours long. Oh. Thank you, Ado, for pointing that out, and I was able to edit that and change it. But thank you so much for watching this, and for those of you that are Patreons, thank you very much for just putting up with me and doing these. And it's kind of a little bit about what today's project is going to be, but I want to get to today's project by explaining a little of my past. My dad, who I haven't seen in over 20 years. My wedding was the last time that I'd seen my dad, and my dad showed up at my wedding with a pot-filled vehicle that he was trying to sell. Not the vehicle, the contents of the vehicle. Yay! My parents are divorced. My dad, when I would go visit him for the summer, I would be like laying on the floor watching TV, and he would say things like, Jesus, you gonna ski on those things? He was referring to my feet. Until I was in high school, I had a complex about the size of my feet. And for those curious, I have a 9.5 size foot. And I didn't realize until I was in high school that that's actually small, but my dad had a size 7. So he would constantly comment about how big my feet were. And he would say things like this, and this will get into today's build. We'd be going to the movies, or we'd be going out somewhere, and I'd be in the bathroom, and he'd say, "What is taking so long in there? You can't polish a turd." I would have been the turd in the polishing of that. And although funny, probably not great for a kid's self-esteem. I mean, my dad was like a demotivational speaker. But anyway, today I'm going to try and polish a couple turds. What happens to me is I finish some projects, and then I carry that project around with me, and I keep it close, and I'm constantly looking at it, and I'm never 100% happy with some of my turds. I feel that I need to go back and revisit some, because I get to a point where I can accept some of the faults or things that I would like to change, and I just move on. But at times, there are some things that I feel I do need to change. They need a little polish. And I've got 2 projects, 2 turds that I'm gonna polish. And that's what I'm gonna do on today's Try to Finish Something. So here they are, the 2 turds in question. You know, I never really finished my Hasbro EE3 rebuild. It's missing a few parts, and I'm just not happy with the paint and my thermal detonator case. I'm still not happy with the inside, and I really have no good explanation as to why I'm just not happy. It just doesn't look like it does anything other than hold the thermal detonators, and the lights, I don't know, they don't make sense to me yet. And I still have the pattern that Odin made, and I might be able to use that to create something to help me tie this all together on the inside. I
heard Adam Savage talk about how he takes his newest props with him and he lives with them, keeping them close. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I do the same thing. And the honest truth is, I am never really 100% happy with anything that I build. But where is that line between obsessing over details and focusing on details? I don't have a good answer for you, and I'm probably leaning a bit to the wrong side of that scale. I stare at my new projects on my desk or by the computer, and sometimes there are things that I just can't live with, and other things that I decide are good enough. And you have to find that right balance for you. So the EE3 blaster, this is the Return of the Jedi version, and I'm not happy with the paint, and I didn't add on the final greeblies, or greebles. I have heard it pronounced both ways. Are they both correct? I have absolutely no idea what is the correct pronunciation for those little bits that make something Star Wars. Those unpainted greeblies in the upper corner aren't on the stock that I painted to look like wood. So here is my issue with this blaster. The main body of this blaster is supposed to be a rusty metal, and the scope, not so much. I'm looking at the images, and there really isn't a ton of detail shown on this blaster. Even the screen-used one is kind of a muddy mess of the same color almost everywhere. On the dented helmet, I found some images that I like, and it looks like it's a version of the blaster that's in a case somewhere, so I don't know. Maybe it's more accurate, maybe it's, I don't know, something that means more to someone, and I'm hoping that means it's more accurate. And here's what it looks like to my obsessive eye. The main body is very rusty, and it's based off of the original flare gun that was modified, and it looks like that too. And the D-ring handle part is, on mine at least, going to be more of a painted steel and not as rusty. Same for my scope. And the greeblies, those will be rusted too. Or the greebles, yeah, those will be rusted too. So the rusted parts. This was already based in black, and I took some browns and blacks on a sponge and dabbed on some color originally, but I'm just not happy with this rust look. Rust has a powdery, dry, almost smeared look when it's on metal, so I'm going to start with a rust-colored airbrush paint that will dry flat, putting that on a sponge and just dabbing that everywhere with no real pattern, and focusing on the main body of the blaster. There are crevices that the sponge won't get, and I'm trying to randomly dab on some in the far recesses with a really thrashed brush. Now, I have some orange craft paint, and I am very, very sparingly hitting a few of the high points with a bit of bright orange. Then I will do the same sparing dabs with a craft paint yellow. Both of these will dry flat. The last step of this I'm doing is with the Tamiya Weathering palette, and they have a great rust orange that goes on very wet, and when it dries, it looks very much like real rust, and it has that powdery smeared look that I'm going for. I am also using the same Tamiya palette that looks like some sort of a terrible eyeshadow makeup container, and I'm using the black and the silver and putting some of that on the D-ring part of the blaster to add some variation from the black and to add some life to the flat black paint. I'm trying to concentrate on the edges with that grayish black color, and I'm also using a paper towel to wipe it off and to keep the brush marks down. I'm weathering the scope with a bit of brown. It won't show up very much, but it will give the variation to what I'm looking for. Again, this is just me. There are things that I stare at when it's sitting beside me. I also take metal things from around our property that have been sitting outside for years, and I sit with them beside me and beside my prop, and I stare at them together. I study everything I can to look at real-world colors and try and relate those to my fantasy world props. I ran outside and shot the greebles with some flat black paint, and while that dries, let's concentrate on the case. So here is my issue with the case. What do the lights Odin put inside actually do? Yeah, they look super cool, but for me, I need a reason, a purpose. I know. Welcome to my mind. So, a thermal detonator is a small, unstable thermonuclear fusion reaction that is highly unstable. When thrown, they explode, causing a blast radius of up to 20 meters. So, carrying 4 of them in a sling seems like a really bad idea. So, here is my thought. The case has an electromagnetic pulse generator that renders the device stable and unable to be triggered as long as they are in the case. So once separated from the electric pulse, they can then be armed and made live. So I need these lights to look like they are really part of something, my story. I'm taking some styrene and I'm going to make a few things to sit inside on the foam. I bought a nibbler tool and I've been dying to use it. So using Odin's pattern, I am making a wedge to sit at the bottom between the 2 and the latch on the inside. When the latch is opened, it triggers the first reaction to then arm the detonators. So I'm making the part that is connected to the latch, creating a few panels with the nibbler to notch out where the screw is on the inside. And I will use some thinner styrene to make another layer and to make panels out of that. And I will use the notch tool to add some interest to the panels. Glue those together and sand the edges. I'm also going to add a few model pieces to make this look like it has some sort of functionality. Now, the electrical components. I have some of these screw-in wire terminal pieces from some old military panels that I got from Jim Strunk. I have at least 6 of them. I'm going to put one close to each detonator and then wire up the switch at the bottom. I'm just drilling a small hole in the foam and then screwing them in. And I'm going to weather these, but I really like that they're red. It ties into my color choices. All right, weathering these with brown and black water-based oils and then dabbing it with a clean paper towel to get a bit of the color to show through. Now I went and grabbed some of the wires from the phone operator cord board that I dismantled almost a year ago. They've been out in the weather for a very long time and they are naturally weathered. I will add some wires between these 2 terminals and then the 2 on the other side and superglue them in. I'm going to just drill out a hole on this side of my panel to put another one of those wire terminal plugs in here, and then I will add another one of the terminals over by the bezel that Odin made that has the lights in it to look like they all tie together. Now weather those and take that outside to base it in a flat black. While that dries, I'm going to put in the Phillips screws in the butt stock of my EE3 and add the square greebly and the skull-shaped ones to the stock itself. Now I'm just going to add the same paints and rust to make these look like they're the same rusted metal as the main body. I am also using this gold Sharpie to add some scratches and then weather on top of those gold scratches. I'm trying to make these look like they were, I don't know, maybe brass, and the gold after it's weathered should look more like brass. Now I'm just weathering the edges where the rusted metal touches the other surfaces to make that darker. All right, bring my piece back in after being sprayed with flat black, and I'm going to add some weathering and dust all over the inside. I also added another grouping of wires to the right of the light bezel, and there. That feels like it has more of a purpose to me. Okay, now I'm calling this thermal detonator case finished for real this time, and the Hasbro Boba Fett EE3 blaster rifle also finished for real. I really hope you enjoyed this video and the scary stroll through my mind. Frightening, isn't it? I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Heck, if you want to get nuts, jump on over to my Patreon and feed my obsession. I want to throw out one more shout out to a new subscriber who just commented on my last video. Evil Ted. I can't believe it. Another mentor of mine checking in. I really hope you enjoyed this video, but if you didn't, as always, just keep it to yourself, and we'll see you next time as we try to finish something the first time.